Imagine a world where a message could travel 3,000 miles in a matter of days, crossing deserts, mountain ranges, and frozen tundras, all without a single wire or a pulse of electricity. Long before the first telegraph sparked to life, and centuries before the digital cloud enveloped our planet, there was a network forged in blood, dust, and the rhythmic beat of 1,000 hooves. It was the central nervous system of the largest contiguous land empire in history, a system so efficient it could make or break kings before they even knew a war had begun. This was the Yam, the secret pulse of the Great Khan. Today on Wikivedia Plus, we will unravel the mysteries of the Mongol post-relay system, the precursor to modern logistics and the ultimate tool of global dominance. Let's dive in. The year is 1220. The sun hangs heavy over the Gobi Desert. A lone rider appears on the horizon, a blur of motion against the shimmering heat. He does not stop. He does not slow down. Around his neck hangs a heavy golden tablet, the Paiza glistening with the authority of the heavens. As he approaches a small, fortified outpost, the sound of a rhythmic bell alerts the station masters. Within seconds, a fresh horse is readied. The rider leaps from one saddle to the next without his feet touching the ground, and in a cloud of dust, he is gone. He will cover 200 miles before the moon reaches its zenith. This was not just a delivery service, it was the world's first high-speed data transfer protocol. To understand the Yam, we must first understand the man who birthed it. Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan, he realized early on that an empire built on the sword could only be maintained through information. When the Mongol hordes began their expansion, they weren't just warriors, they were architects of a new world order. The Yam, in Mongolian, was established to ensure that the Khan's word was law, no matter how far the borders pushed. By the time of his successors, the network stretched from the shores of the Pacific to the gates of Eastern Europe, comprising over 1,500 stations and tens of thousands of dedicated horses. The logistics were staggering. Each station was positioned exactly 25 to 30 miles apart, the maximum distance a horse could gallop at full speed before collapsing. These stations were not merely stables, they were high-security hubs stocked with supplies, fresh mounts, and elite riders who lived and died by the clock. For the arrow messengers, the elite core of the Yam, failure was not an option. They would bind their bodies with tight bandages to prevent their internal organs from shifting under the relentless vibration of the gallop. They ate in the saddle, slept in the saddle, and sometimes they died in the saddle. But the true power of the Yam lay in its legal framework, the Yasa. This secret code of laws dictated that every citizen of the empire, regardless of rank, was obligated to assist a messenger carrying a Paiza. If a rider needed your best horse, you gave it. If he needed food, you fed him. To delay a messenger of the Khan was a capital offense, punishable by death. The Paiza itself was the ultimate access key. A golden tablet meant the bearer spoke with the voice of the Khan himself. It was a diplomatic passport, a credit card, and a weapon of intimidation all rolled into one. The depth of the Yam extended into the very fabric of the steppe. Scholars suggest that the efficiency of this system allowed the Mongols to manage trade routes that became the Silk Road's golden era. Without the Yam, the Pax Mongolica would have been impossible. Each station acted as a microfortress, a point of light in the vast darkness of the wilderness. They kept logs, recorded weather patterns, and monitored the health of the horses with a precision that borders on modern veterinary science. The horses themselves were the small, sturdy Mongol breeds, capable of surviving on minimal forage while maintaining an endurance that baffled European and Persian observers. They were the biological engines of a geopolitical machine. But what happens when the messengers themselves become the targets? Or when a single delayed message could mean the death of thousands? Behind the efficiency of this postal system lay a darker purpose. The Yam was not just for letters and decrees, it was the ultimate espionage tool. How did Genghis Khan know about the internal weaknesses of European kingdoms years before his armies arrived? The answer lies in the shadow riders of the network. As we look deeper into the shadows of the 13th century, we find that the Yam functioned as the world's first global intelligence agency. Merchants, travelers, and monks who used the protected routes of the Pax Mongolica were often unwitting informants. Every station master was required to report back on the movements of foreigners, the state of local harvests, and any whispers of rebellion. The Khan didn't just rule territory, he ruled the flow of knowledge. When Marco Polo arrived at the court of Kublai Khan, he was mesmerized. He described the yam as a system finer than any other in the world, noting that even the most remote corners of the empire felt the immediate presence of the emperor. This mastery of information gave the Mongols a psychological edge. In an era where news traveled at the speed of a walking caravan, the sudden appearance of a Mongol vanguard informed by the yam about local topography and political rivalry seemed like sorcery. They were knowledge predators. They knew where the wells were, which gates were weak, and which generals could be bribed, all because a rider had passed through weeks prior. This was the era of information warfare, long before the term was coined. The ability to synchronize armies separated by thousands of miles was a feat that wouldn't be repeated until the invention of the radio. Consider the sheer scale. At its peak, the yam employed over 300,000 horses. The environmental impact alone was significant, requiring massive tracts of grazing land to be managed by the state. This was a command economy focused entirely on the speed of a letter. The riders were trained from childhood, their legs slightly bowed from years in the stirrups, their minds focused on the next horizon. They carried with them the heavy burden of empire birth announcements of princes, declarations of war, and the secret tax codes that fueled the Mongol machine. They were the invisible threads weaving together China, Russia, and the Middle East. The collapse of the yam mirrored the collapse of the empire itself. As the Mongol Khanates fractured, the lines of communication were severed. The internet went offline. Suddenly, a governor in Persia had no idea what the Khan in China was planning. The central nervous system died, and the limbs of the empire soon followed, yet the blueprint remained. From the Pony Express in the American West to the modern courier services we use today, the DNA of Genghis Khan's secret network is still visible. It taught the world that speed is the ultimate currency of power. Even in our world of 5G and fiber optics, the ghost of the Mongol rider still gallops across the digital landscape, reminding us that he who controls the network controls the world. As the echoes of today's story fade back into the archive, we are left once again at the edge of the unknown. Thank you for journeying with us to the fringes of history and science. If these mysteries resonated with you, we invite you to support the channel by liking this video and subscribing to our growing community of seekers. Share this transmission on your social networks. Your curiosity is what keeps these stories alive. We will return soon with another chapter that was never meant to be told. Until our next encounter, stay curious. This is Wikivedia Plus.